Hello, and welcome to Abby Tyler's Healthy Living. My name is Abby Tyler. I'm your host, a family nurse practitioner, a health and wellness blogger, and a community volunteer. And here we discuss evidence based health information regarding mind, body, and soul with a holistic emphasis. Thanks for joining me on this journey of health and wellness. Please enjoy the show. Hello, hello, hello. Alice, welcome to our weekly show. Today we're on a different night, a Thursday, and I have a special show. I have a special guest with me. As you can see, tonight our discussion is on peer pressure and bullying. My name is Abby. I'm your Healthy Living NP. As always, my disclaimer, I'm a provider, but I'm not your provider. So please do not make any changes to your regimen without checking with your own provider. Alrighty, and my guest is tonight is Miss Vanessa Nelkrop. She's gonna give her 2 seconds, 2 seconds, a couple, give a minute there for her to introduce herself to my audience. Some of you know her from before, but she can introduce herself again. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you for having me. Again, it's always a pleasure to be here on this show. My name is Vanessa Woods Nelthrop. I am a licensed professional counselor in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. I have my private practice called South Jersey Coping Clinic, where we treat children, teens, adults, couples, and families using integrative, holistic wellness and health strategies.
Okay, good. Welcome again, Vanessa. And of course, disclosure, she's my niece. Okay, so no, that's what she said. It big girl. Okay, welcome again, guys. Please share the show. Please share the show. Please share the show. Okay, this it pertains to everybody. Okay, so as you can see, discussion on peer pressure and bullying. About month ago in Chicago, where we had this I'm going to show you this video. I'm just going to give a little background. Okay, there was this lady. She had I think her son elementary school. He had been bullied by a couple of kids in the school and everything, and she went to the school to get help. And I think a couple of times, and nobody gave her any assistance. She was coming home, and these kids, Busher kids, I guess one of the main ones that were bullying her kids all along, got behind them and started, beating her up. I'm just going to show part of the video. Okay, I didn't download it, and plus I'm going to show that in the comment section later on. So let me just show that. I don't know if you guys can see that. Just going to go in here. Sorry, it's maybe a little poor quality. So just listen.
It's hard to watch. Children circled a mother, then pinned her against a fence. Dragging the mother and her son to the ground, continuously beating them.
These children are going to have to live with this for the rest of their lives. And the children are our future, so it's not fair.
Police say it started when the 33-year-old mother, her young son, and daughter were walking near 106 and Bensley in the South Deering neighborhood. A group of kids then started chasing after them, calling them names and taunting them. Both the mother and son were beaten so badly they were taken to a hospital. Word of the attack spread quickly on social media, causing outrage among many parents. One day after the attack, demonstrators showed up at Orville T. Bright Elementary School after some posted on social media threatening to harm the children behind the attack. Several police officers showed up blocking the entrance of the school to protect kids inside. Shanice Davis lives in the neighborhood and says she recognizes the attackers.
This is not the first time the kids have done this. Just talk around the streets that these kids have pretty much been raising themselves and they have not been held accountable. They have vandalized cars. They have harassed adults and children.
To know and to find out even now that other families are affected by this. We're meeting families out here that their children been bullied and been beat on.
Chicago Police District Council member Joseph Williams was inside talking with the principal, the mother, and CPS administration.
Accountability is going to be key because if this been going on, we need to make sure that principal be held accountable for her actions as well. This should have been documented. Parents should have been called to the school, and we got to make sure all around there is some type of accountability that's happening here.
Okay, I chose to continue all through where the family and the school district and the community was talking about it because so far as most of the videos just have been of the attack and the sensationalizing of it and all that too. So I wanted to, that's the main reason I have Vanessa here for us to talk about it today. So Vanessa, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so already, so you deal with teens and children. All I'm a family nurse practitioner, so I usually take care of the medical side. So things when something like this happen, I'm usually taking care of the medical side, and I always defer the treatment and everything to the guidance counselor, to the school principal, and also the therapist and all that too. So you've been an expert in this area. That's why I have you here. Okay, so again, let's get some of the questions here. So what do you, I'm going to make it raw informal. What do you think would have, what exactly could have led to all of this, and how do we work around it?
Yeah, it's hard to really know, right? Because social media only gives you blurbs and excerpts. But from the evidence that's out there and the statements that have been gathered, it seems like this was a bullying situation that occurred. And when this incident of bullying was reported by the victim and his mother, it exacerbated this response for them to be attacked, which is completely unacceptable. And I agree that there should be some accountability. However, it's hard to really say, where some of this stems from. Unfortunately, this isn't new to the Chicago incident. We've seen more widespread attacks on senior citizens, women, other youth, right? Attacks that sometimes seem to be at random, and then some that seem to be well thought out and planned. So this isn't getting better. The news outlets and research is showing that this issue is actually getting worse.
So what external factors do you think could have led to that? Exposure to violence, lack of role models, social media. Could be a combination of all of that, or what exactly you think could have led to that? Like, again, like I said, combination of all three, or even more than that.
Yeah, it could be a combination of all things, but I think at the crux of it all, at the base of it all is culture, right? Whether that's culture within your household or within the school setting around what's tolerated, social media, right? The culture amongst the friend group, and what's held at a high standard of what's acceptable. You have to imagine in middle school, a sense of belonging and connection to peers is very, very important. And a lot of times, as your brain is developing, you don't make the most rational decisions, and you tend to make things based off of impulse, but also to fit in. And so a lot of these monkey see, monkey do sort of scenarios that are coming up and that we're experiencing are usually a byproduct of social norms and wanting to feel accepted amongst their peers, and sometimes even their family.
So do you think, and the fact that they did that and also recorded it for Facebook, you think that also now Facebook, just social media basically, because before people were getting beat up long before social media ever came about, but you think is exacerbated situation now, knowing that, oh, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be social media famous. Do you think that also played a part in that too? Because I mean, by them doing that, that's also evidence. So what's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it's hard to really know, right, without actually talking to any of these folks. But I will say that social media does encourage a lot of things that are really toxic, right? We see things like people making derogatory comments and things that they normally typically wouldn't do in a one-on-one situation or in person rather. And so, social media can definitely be a reason why folks do the things that they do. But I will say sometimes this is more deeper than that, right? For me, when I'm working with clients, it's not social media. Social media is a tool, right? It's access, but it's not necessarily to blame. We have to look at the root of the problem, which is, why is it attractive for these folks to want to gain attention in this manner, in this meeting? What is it that they feel like they're missing? So you mentioned mentorship. Sometimes that connection, right, isn't necessarily there at home. Sometimes maybe they're not getting the loving connection that they need, or at school with their peers. Sometimes they might feel isolated and not accepted or rejected. And so this is a way for them to fit in. So I think instead of looking at physical things, external things like social media, it's really, why are those things attractive to these people? What is it that they feel like they're gaining through doing some of those things? And a lot of it boils down to connection. Even though we're more connected more than ever because we're able to reach people in ways that we didn't before, and we've been able to connect with people 24/7, we are the most disconnected we've been. Right? There's a lot of loneliness is actually on the increase. It's not decreasing, and it's not just with adults, it's with kids, right? How many times have you been in a room and everybody's on their phone? They're not talking to each other. Everybody's searching on their phone, right? And so there's a lack of connection that is happening across the culture here that is making it really difficult for people to get their needs met in healthy ways.
Also, that could also be the financial aspect of it too, because a lot of people, even some content creators, they know that there are certain things that are wrong, but because they know you can get into creative fund, you can make a video that can go viral and basically pay your rent or pay your mortgage for the entire month. So most of these kids now, if adults are doing it, that's also an incentive for the younger ones to do also. I mean, I'm assuming this kid, the one who was yelling, I'm sure he wasn't more than 13. So for Facebook, you can't be on Facebook, or you can have an account unless you're at least 13. But then again, there's so many other ways around that too. So, I mean, the financial aspect, that's part of it too. I can see that. One of the questions I was looking at too about the peer pressure part. Okay. Most of the kids, I saw one day, she looked like she was about maybe not 7 or 8, maybe 8 or 9 or so. And as a mother, I would have been saying, oh, my 8-year-old won't be able to do that. That's too wicked. Nobody young enough can do something so cruel. And yet you see these kids there. I mean, their preoperative thinking is not even, sealed yet. And they're able to sit there and beat somebody and beat a mother, beat another child without even thinking about it. As a mother, if you saw your child doing that, you say, oh, I know my little Johnny wouldn't do that. I know my little, Linda wouldn't do that. And you see something like that. How does a parent wrap that around and saying, I can't believe my child did that, because I can boast to anybody, my child won't be that cruel to do something to another child or to another adult?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important that we separate the person from the behavior, right? And so I'm very careful not to label kids as bad. What we're seeing is harmful behavior, but that's not their permanent identity. They made a bad decision, right? And so we have to recognize as adults, our brains are fully developed, right? And so we have more and better understanding of our emotions and better control over them, right? For the most part, or we have the capacity at least. Children's brains, especially at that age, are still developing and really aren't fully developed until about 25, 26, right? And it's parts of the brains that is responsible for things like impulse control and long-term thinking and things like empathy, right? When you lack empathy for the person that's sitting across from you, that makes it easier for you to do things like this. And that's why it's so important that we start early intervention for all kids when we talk about social emotional learning and how to create empathy and how to control our impulses and how to pause and think before we do things. So for that parent that's looking to, rationalize why it happened, I think we can talk about why it happened, and that's important. But let's talk about how we move forward and how we model and teach for our kids how to develop a sense of empathy for their neighbors and for the people around them.
So if you were talking to, like I said before, people are saying, they need to have criminal records, that some of them need to be put in jail. Because I think, again, like I said, even the oldest person, that sounded like he or she was about 12-ish. Do you think that these kids need to have any kind of, you already spoke to that, saying that they're not bad, but for people to feel like, oh my God, what they did was so wicked, they need to be punished. what do you think would be the proper punishment if you were speaking to law enforcement? Of course, you're not law enforcement, but what would you think would be the accountability factor for them?
Well, I think accountability is definitely important here, right? Because while we can talk about developing brains and poor impulse control, it still doesn't excuse the behavior. What happened should have never happened, and there should definitely be accountability for that. And I think that this is where we talk about like systemic and community input, which is so important here. Research shows that punishment does not work. Punishment does not work. I don't care how much you beat a child. I don't care how much community service you give them. It does not fix the root of the problem, right? So if the root of the problem is disconnection, putting them in a juvenile institution where they're further disconnected from their family and the things that are important to them aren't going to make them a better citizen, right? So when we talk about rehabilitation, it involves a 360 model. So again, how are we teaching that social emotional learning inside the school systems? How are we utilizing the Justice Department to do things that are going to actually help, like mandating therapy, right? Going to the person that they attacked and recognizing how wrong it is and doing that apology. How do we get the family involved so that there's stronger oversight and mentorship and accountability in that way so that they can make it right? Again, by maybe spending more time with the people that they assaulted in assisting them and helping them so that they can better understand their world. Remember, it's less likely that folks are going to develop these abusive behaviors and disconnect themselves the more empathy they have. And how do you establish empathy? You establish relationships with folks. That's the reason why it's so easy for people to make all kinds of comments on social media. They don't really know you, right? And so they can just, or they don't have to see you. Even if they know you, they don't have to see you on a consistent basis, right? And so they can just say whatever they want without any accountability and just walk away. That changes vastly if you had to see that person more often and come into contact with them. And so my suggestion would be to find a way for them to make it right by developing empathy, by surrounding them with more people, but also mandated therapy, most certainly, because obviously there's something deeper that's happening that's being missed.
And kudos to Chicago, the school district, the community, they all came together and demanded changes and all, because usually, but then of course there's the element who wanted to go there and beat up the kids who beat up the mother and the kids and all that, because people felt so helpless, and it was so cruel just looking at that and all. So what would you say to the mother too? Because I saw another clip where she was saying that her son is still waking up with nightmares and all that. How do you talk to the kid that was attacked and keep him from getting to where he becomes angry later on because he couldn't protect himself? He couldn't protect his mother or his sister. How do you speak to them? I don't know if that's appropriate in this case, but that's, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing for us, especially at South Jersey Coping Clinic, is allowing room for those emotions, because we don't want to suppress them. It's okay for him to feel angry. It's okay for him to acknowledge that he's anxious or upset. I think the quicker they allow themselves to express that, the better chance we have at actually addressing it and teaching them coping strategies for working their way through that. But I think in addition, cognitive behavioral therapy is really important. Getting them in a peer support group, maybe with other kids who've experienced something similar, so that they have this understanding that it's not just them and there's other people out there who've gone through similar things, that are finding tools to make it better for them. And then I think addressing the systemic issue as well, right? Because a lot of these things that are happening, especially the bullying that goes on in school and even after school, a lot of the bullying that's happening outside of school definitely comes into the school, right? And especially when we're talking Chicago or inner cities, urban cities, there's a lot of understaffing that happens, a lack of resources that happens. So the key anchors in these school systems and environments for kids aren't there, right? They don't have enough counselors in the school. They don't have enough security officers. They don't have a lot of mentorship programs. A lot of the emphasis is being placed on sports. And while that's great and can be helpful and healthy for mental health and a positive outlet, not everybody is into sports. And so for the folks who aren't into sports, they need other outlets that'll allow them to be able to express themselves in healthy ways and give them something else to do outside of bully and harass other people.
Okay. That's cool. Well, for this mother and her kids, they were able to get them out of the community and they moved away. But for many kids, they don't have that. And even also, we talked about the fact that when you're online, you can say, I can never see you, they put in keyboard warriors. But unfortunately for kids nowadays, it's like, meet me outside. Yep. I know where you are. You say anything on Facebook or wherever it is, whatever app they're using. Next thing you know, it spills out into the streets. And the bullying also, they can take a picture of you and I did a video a couple of weeks ago where they had the camera challenge where they would take somebody who's not cool or considered not cool or pretty and have them hold a camera while they're dancing. And then they flip the camera and the camera turns to the person who's filming it. It's usually, again, somebody like a quiet child. They're even doing that to special education students and so elderly people. And that's so cruel. And then they put the video online and you don't even know you're there. Next thing you know, people are making fun of you. So there's so many ways now that, again, like I said, in my day, of course, we didn't have all of that. But, social media also amplifies that because there's so many ways you can tease somebody in the 5th grade in your class. When I was in school, but that video can go nowadays, it can go all the way around the world. So, but again, going back to the topic, and again, that's when we're talking about peer pressure and bullying, that's something you're supposed to be doing very frequently, though, with your children, especially in the school. It's not something where you just do one in service a year. I know, again, going back to resources and all that, but we have to keep, like pounding it down, saying this is important because as you get older, when you get to 15 and 16, you are going to start racking up criminal charges and all that. So we want to start very early. How early do you think we should start? Because in this case, again, the youngest one looked like she was about 8 or 9 years old, and some of them were even younger than that. So how early should we start? How often should we do it? And then you can just go into like your final thoughts and all that. So I won't keep you too long.
There's never such thing as too early. So the moment your kids start understanding concepts is the moment that you should start modeling and teaching things like kindness, things like permission, healthy touching, talking about things like empathy in a way that they can understand, like at an age appropriate level. And also preschool, kindergarten, all of these things should be taught, social emotional learning, and also giving, again, different opportunities for kids to express themselves in ways that are healthy. It's okay that you don't like that girl that sits next to you. It's okay that you don't think that she's the prettiest thing on earth, right? But you don't need to say that out loud. Growing up, we were taught, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And now people just say whatever comes to their mind at any moment's notice. And it's not healthy, And so being able to teach these concepts earlier on, but also give these kids the tools that they need is very tricky because, again, a lot of these schools are severely, severely understaffed. And I didn't really realize the depths of this until I served on the school board, and you recognize you don't get a lot of help from the federal government. Everything is state funded. And when you're a public school, you're competing for a lot of dollars. And the only way that you're truly getting funded is taxes. And who wants to raise their tax every year, right? So your options are very, very limited. The way that we support the schools in America needs a lot of reform. And I think once we're able to get that reform, we'll be able to better staff folks. Teachers will actually want to stay, and teachers will actually be able to teach, and they'll get people that are responsible and trained to do things like therapy and create better culture for the students, which I think will ultimately be a game changer in how we see kids show up. There's this school, and I forget the name, but it's in Atlanta. Is this white guy and his wife. They built a school. I think the guy started out in New York, right, in the inner cities, and he did such a good job with creating a dynamic culture that they flew him in to start implementing the same types of things in Atlanta. And now they're one of the top schools. And most of the kids that go there are Black and brown kids, but the culture and the success rate is so high because they have the staffing that they need. They have the buy-in from the kids. They create that social, emotional environment that makes kids feel safe. And that's really what we need to model, all across the country in these schools, is how do we create a safe environment? Because for most kids, this is the safest, I won't say for most, but for a lot of kids, this is the most safe place that they'll be. It's a place where they can have a guaranteed meal. They can have appropriate supervision, right? They can have access to things that maybe they don't at home. And we have to really guard that with integrity. So there's a lot that needs to happen. But I think in terms of accountability, we can't just talk about accountability and not talk about the systems that are broken within the school systems.
Yes. And also for the medical part, most of these kids, when they're being bullied or whatever's going on in the school, they come to the pediatrician's office and they're like complaining of headaches. And sometimes you can't find the cause of the headaches. And some of them end up start wetting the bed or start complaining of many medical reasons, medical issues that you can't really find a reason for. You do all the testing. And sometimes it comes down to, I don't want to go to school. I'm just going to fake an illness to do. I'm going to say something today because, I'm not getting the help that I need. And if I go tell my parents come to the school, look what happened. This kid and his mom got beat up. And also it just seems like, sometimes, again, going back to what you said, we just need to and the whole community has to get involved. The entire community. We all also live in, places where, you live in here and your nearest friend lives way across town, but you can get online and talk to them, but you don't feel that closeness in the community. So we all need to step up and do what we can. Whether you have children in school district or not, children in higher grades, school, whatever you can do to help out, go to your local PTA, go to your local school district office and say, what can I do to help? Okay, maybe I can come in and sit down for some session. Maybe I can, whatever it is, it can tell you, because again, like I don't have young children in the school district, so I can always say, what can I do to help? Local, the church or your religious houses and all that too. We can do that because we need the entire community to work into that. How would you, just one more thing, how would you talk to the cultural aspect of it? Because we're both, immigrants and all that. So it's, when I was growing up, again, it's like my aunt used to say, nobody cares about bullying. He says sticks and stone can break my bone, but words can hurt me. We heard all those things and all that. And plus you went to school, they said so many things to you anyway. So nobody cared about the mental part of growing up as an immigrant when we were growing up. It's a little different now. Some would say it's still the same. So how would you speak to the cultural aspect? Because I've been in places where I've heard mother and fathers or guardians like, oh, just so you know, that's more than So how would you speak to the cultural aspect of it?
Yeah, there's a huge gap between folks who are coming from a different country and what they consider to be bullying in a lot of different countries just doesn't exist. It's not a concept. It's just like, get over it. Like, you'll be fine. But we're finding that these kids are not fine and that they're really, really struggling. And so there is not just a cultural gap, but a generational gap. And so I would really encourage families to take the time to really understand how things are impacting your person, because whether or not you agree with it, whether or not you think it's too sensitive is irrelevant. The fact is, it's impacting them. And if you wish for them to be successful, part of that is acknowledging that there is something that's impacting their mental health, which also has the capacity to impact everything else. Their financial health, right? Which is, if you're an immigrant, that is something that's very important. You want to make sure they go to school and they make lots of money and they can take care of themselves and maybe even you. So it will definitely impact that, right? Their physical health. Because a lot of times when you start to get depressed and stressed, it shows up physically. It manifests itself physically. You gain weight or you lose a lot of weight. You can't concentrate. You can't sleep, right? You're not getting out of bed. You can't focus. And so whether or not you agree with why they're sad and why it's impacting them is irrelevant. The fact is, it's impacting them, right? So how can we be supportive in helping them move through that? And if you yourself as a mom or a dad or a parent or a sibling or a community member can't assist them, then by all means, move on out the way and point them to the closest person who can, so that they can get the help, support, and warmth that they need to make it through whatever it is that they're going through.
Yes, and don't say, "Oh yeah, when I was there, I didn't let it bother me," and all that doesn't mean, because I always tell people what we did back home. I was a child back home and all that, and I came here, and I was a youngster in my teen years, and I was bullied. Oh my God, there were many days I did not want to go to school and all that. Learning, I mean, I had the language, but getting the accent and all, I went through that, and I told these kids now, like, when I came, there was no social media. At least you guys have social media. You can talk to people from your same country, and it's acceptable now to be here. But back then, all you wanted to do was assimilate. And the little piece of accent that came through, you were bullied mercilessly. So I know what they're going through from one aspect and all that too, but not where they're going to now. So I thank you very much for being here. Let me just see if there's any questions. I think I see any comments here. Okay. Let me see. Jackie said, great topic at this time of the year with everything going on. Yes, Sri. Thanks for watching and focus on Liberia. Yes. I mean, because then again, you talk about general consensus of everything else that's going on in the world. People think it's okay now to just say whatever they want to say, because it seems like there's no consequence for people who are in certain positions, but there's consequence for people who are in. So, but anyway, so if you have anything to plug, you can plug your show or whatever you're doing now and your business and all that too, because I want people to be able to, who in the New Jersey area or tri-state area, only online, to be able to reach you if they need any additional help. So go ahead.
Yeah, so we provide services online and in person. So online, you can reach us from pretty much anywhere in PA, New Jersey, and New York and North Carolina too. But if you want to come in person, we have 2 locations, one in Marlton, New Jersey, and one in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Again, our brand name is South Jersey Coping Clinic. So if you'd like to learn more about our services, you can reach out online via our website, and that's www.southjerseycopingclinic.com, or you can follow us on all platforms at South Jersey Coping Clinic.
Okay, I'm going to put the information in the comment section too, so if they didn't see that. Okay, thank you. We got this done. About 40 minutes. I didn't want to make it too long because people attention span, if we're not, it's like 3 minutes and then you're done. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I wanted to talk about this for a while, but I wanted to make sure I had an expert present to do it. So you did an awesome job, like you always do. Thank you. Guys out there, thanks for watching. Again, make sure you follow her on Facebook also. And if you need anybody who needs to be able to get to her, she's online also. Let me say, I think I got, okay. Jackie said, thank you very much. All righty. So thank you, Vanessa. And, happy holidays. Happy holidays if you celebrate Christmas.
Yes, same to you.
And happy Kwanzaa and all of that. And hopefully I can get you back on again. Okay.
Always.
My regards to my in-law.
Yes.
And your mom.
Yes.
Bye. Okay, thank you guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.